She still tries to reach Benny directly once. That goes badly. She heads out needing to tell him something before the chance disappears. Instead, the paparazzo neighbor catches her in the street and films her falling apart. The clip spreads. Fans see a breakdown. The business side sees trouble. Deal pressure jumps again. Back at home, Xander gets one more thing to use against her. After that, Joy stops waiting for a clean opening. She builds backups, then more backups. She works on the memoir. She lays out the clue trail. She makes the password file. She tries to move money somewhere Xander cannot grab it. Every step follows the same logic. If one route gets blocked, maybe the next one stays alive. By the time day zero starts, Benny thinks he is walking into one urgent conversation. Joy already knows she is in the last stretch of an escape. The search party pushes Benny toward Joy's password. Benny is now reading Joy's evidence while the police begin reading him as a suspect. For the moment, he is still acting like the friend who refuses to stop. He goes out with the search party. He climbs the dry hillsides. He pushes through brush, calls Joy's name, and keeps looking into ravines and behind fences and down narrow cuts in the ground that suddenly all seem dangerous. The wind has dropped, but the Santa Ana damage is still everywhere. Dust, broken branches, hot air. He wants to keep moving, because standing still would mean thinking. The search does not give him joy, it gives him more pressure. The assistant producer was not neutral after all, and the Memoir Plus Quinn's account start making that plain. Quinn, the assistant producer's wife, says the blunt part out loud. There was a promised bonus hanging over this job. The move mattered, their money mattered, and the person holding that leverage was also her older brother. So when he wanted updates, Xander's sister on the team was never dealing with a normal work request. It was family pressure, job pressure, and money pressure all at once. That does not excuse what she did. It does explain why she kept passing things along. Benny's sister is now essential to the clue work, not only to emotional support. Where Benny hears betrayal and gets angry, the psychologist's sister starts sorting it into pattern. Who knew what? Who stood where? Why Joy would trust a delayed message more than one direct plea. That brings them back to the password. Joy's file has been sitting there like a taunt. Benny has already chased the easy answers, the track titles, the holding hands emoji, the little jokes that feel like they should open into something bigger. He and the psychologist's sister run through the dead ends again, including the wrong turn through Chez Moi and Chez News. Then the pattern finally comes clear. They stop guessing wide and start thinking the way Joy wanted Benny to think. He types in attic dismemberment appliances. The file opens. That is the real break in this section. The search party does not find Joy. Joy's own trail does. The open memoir gives Benny the truth, and the body changes the case. Once the file opens, Benny does not get one neat answer. He gets years of his life rearranged in front of him. The memoir tells him the silence after the miscarriage was built on a lie. He had spent years thinking Joy pulled away, or that grief made him useless to her, or that he failed her so badly there was nothing left to repair. Now he sees what happened. Xander blocked the calls, Xander intercepted the messages, Xander built that gap on purpose. Then the later chapters hit. The podcast was never only work from Joy's side. It was a way to get Benny back into daily life. The tension on tour was not random strain. It was jealousy tightening around her. The stalker fear was not just fame going bad. It had become part of the control system around the house. The baby monitor after the windstorm, the more isolated move, the second pregnancy caused by sabotaged birth control. The assistant producer reporting back. Piece by piece, Benny has to meet. He kept seeing signs and filing them under stress, weirdness, or bad timing. Up to here, Benny has been reading private evidence. Once Joy's late husband turns up dead beside the burned MG, the police switch to public evidence. A wrecked house, a missing wife, and a death that does not read clean. That changes everything at once. Us. The house already looked wrong. Now there is a body in the forest. The car is burned. Joy is still missing. The injuries do not point cleanly to a simple accident, so the police stop treating this like a bad disappearance with a tragic crash attached. From their side, this is now a death investigation. From Benny's side, the air changes fast. He had been inside that house that night. He knew the layout. He knew the marriage was under strain, even if he did not know how bad it was. Now he is reading pages that show Joy trapped in an abusive home. To him, that is truth. To police, it can also look like motive. Then the money transfer comes into view. $1 million moved under his login. Benny knows he did not steal it. The police do not know that. Add his access, the timing, and the state of the house, and the line around him starts to tighten. So the same file gives him a clearer picture of Joy. It also makes the official case around him easier to build. Now, to wit. The shelter gives Joy safety, but it also cuts off easy contact. With Joy alive on the page again, the question shifts from where she is to how she can safely get back into the story. The shelter gives her the first real stop after the escape. That matters. She is hurt, exhausted, and running on whatever adrenaline she had left in the car. Gloria does the basic work first. A bed, water, clean clothes, food, a calm voice, a place to sit down and stop scanning every doorway. Joy does not need a speech. She needs the room to get simple. The safety comes with rules. The address is hidden. Residents do not hand it out. Visitors do not come and go. There is no easy private phone access. If someone needs help from police, a lawyer, or a court staff helps route it. Computer use happens in a shared room, on schedule, with limits. The whole place is built around one idea. One careless call can bring an abuser straight to the door. Joy understands why the rules exist. She still hates what they mean. Benny is out there somewhere, looking for her. She knows he will not stop. Even so, she cannot just pick up a phone and tell him where she is. Doing that could expose everyone in the building, not only herself. The first small opening comes in the computer lab. A shelter resident named Mitali meets Joy at the computers and offers the first apparent route for passing information out. It is a quiet scene, shared machines, limited time, other people in the room. Still, to Joy, it feels huge. It means there may be some way to leave a trace beyond these walls. For a little while, that hope is enough to keep her moving. The missing 7 p.m. recording comes back on Benny. Back outside, Benny runs into the other side of the case. The file coming back matters because this was the missing 7 p.m. recording, the one Joy tried to make before Xander came home. Now the police can hear Benny's confession and his threat exactly as he said them. Before this, that audio had been absent. People knew there was supposed to be a recording session. They did not have the sound from it. Once the case hardens, the assistant producer turns that missing file over to the detectives. From Benny's side, the timing is brutal. After the pressure around the bonus, after the questions about loyalty, after the body is found, this is the kind of handoff that protects her and leaves him exposed. They play it for him in the interview room. He hears Joy trying to set up the break announcement. He hears himself pushing for an answer she cannot safely give. Then he hears the turn. His love confession is right there in his own voice. So is the threat he makes against Xander when panic and anger get ahead of judgment. That is what makes the recording devastating. It does not paraphrase him. It does not depend on memory. It preserves the worst possible version of that night. To police, the picture gets cleaner. Benny loved Joy. Benny had access to the house. Money moved under his credentials. Now there is audio where he says he loves her and talks about killing the husband who stood between them. That is why he becomes such a believable suspect on paper. The case does not rest on a hunch. It rests on 4 hard points that all lean the same way: confession on tape, threat on tape, money transfer, access. Benny can hear the trap as soon as the playback ends. The problem is bigger than the police being wrong. The problem is that, from the outside, wrong still looks reasonable. Joy learns he is dead and sends the smallest signal she can. Back at the shelter, the delay gets worse. First, there is the relief of being inside. Then, the rules close in. Then, the computer room gives her one thin thread of hope. After that, the next blow lands. Joy learns her late husband is dead. The news reaches her from outside, without context and without the full story of what happened after she ran. It does not make her feel free. It makes her afraid all over again. What did the lawyer do? What did the neighbor judge see? What story is moving out there while she is trapped in here? Her body is also getting harder to manage. Pain rises. Her sleep starts breaking across the day in the wrong places. She is off her usual rhythm. She is pregnant, injured, scared, and trying to think through a fog that keeps getting thicker. The safe place is real, so is the slowdown. That is when she leaves the smallest signal she can. AII is not a full call for help. It is the smallest signal Joy can leave without giving the shelter away. She posts it because Benny will know the sound of it. He will hear her in that one little burst. It says she is alive. It does not say where. It does not hand over the address. It does not solve anything. It is only a trace. After that, Joy cannot do much more. She waits for the message to land. She tries to believe help is moving toward her, but she is getting foggier and less able to act. Time slips. Pain keeps pulling her under. The path back into the open world does not widen. It narrows. By the end of this stretch, two things are true at once. Joy is alive, and Benny still cannot reach her. He understands far more of what she had been living through. The police, meanwhile, now have more reason to look straight at him. Joy has managed to send one signal. Benny's position only gets worse. Episode 5. The camera, the gate, the ambulance. Joy is alive, and now the clock sits in her body. Benny finally gets hard proof, though he keeps damaging his own position on the way there. From here on, every clue only matters if it gets him to Joy in time. At the bakery, Benny hears the family pressure out loud. Benny goes to the bakery, still angry and still stuck inside half-right theories. He wants somebody to say one clean thing. The baker wipes her hands on her apron, looks him straight in the face, and quits covering for the assistant producer. Her wife had been feeding information back inside the family line. Who Joy was with, what she was doing, what was happening on the work side. Benny has suspected that already. Hearing it said aloud still lands hard. Then the baker keeps going, and that changes the shape of it. This was never only about loyalty. It was job pressure. It was the move to Los Angeles. It was the promised bonus waiting at the end if everybody kept the machine running. It was old family debt dressed up as professionalism. The assistant producer kept telling herself that staying close gave her some control, that she could keep things from getting worse if she stayed inside the room. Benny hears compromise in every word. Fear, too. He can picture all the little choices that piled up into damage. None of that clears the assistant producer. It does strip away one bad theory. She helped the trap hold. She was never the hold trap. Benny walks out with the line pulled tighter around home, money, and family. Joy slips out for a quiet doctor visit. Joy is still upright enough to leave quietly when she makes the appointment. That matters. The visit comes early in her shelter stay, before the bleeding gets heavy enough to pin her down. Later, she will not be able to do this at all. She keeps her head down. She keeps the visit small. She wants answers without noise. At the appointment, the danger turns concrete. The pregnancy is real. The bleeding risk is real. Her medication routine is already broken. Stress, injury, and exhaustion are all hitting the same body at once. She needs follow-up. She needs rest. She needs a level of care that does not fit with hiding in pieces and pretending she can hold it together for one more day. Joy leaves with two thoughts fighting each other. One is panic. The other is timing. She chooses timing. She tells herself she only needs a little more distance first, a little more privacy, a little more help. If she can stay hidden long enough, then she can deal with the pregnancy, the bleeding, the medication, the legal plan, and Benny. She keeps moving on that belief. It is the last stretch where she can still pretend she has time. The AIE clue sends Benny back to Joy's desk. Back on Benny's side, the clue trail finally stops being abstract. The tiny AI signal keeps bothering him. It is too odd to be random. He hears it and thinks of the Fonzie statue that used to sit on Joy's desk. If Joy chose that word on purpose, then she is pointing him back to that room, back to that desk, back to something close by. So Benny returns at night and stands in the office again. This time, he stops searching drawers and files. He looks above the desk instead, at the vent set into the wall over the place where the statue sat. He drags a chair over, climbs up, gets his fingers under the metal edge. The screws fight him. Dust drops into his eyes. His hands are shaking before he even sees anything, because he already knows Joy would not have left that clue without a reason. Then the vent shifts, and there it is. A hidden camera, tucked back where nobody should have had one. The card comes out in Benny's hand, small and solid and real. After days of memoir pages, guesses, and bad theories, he finally has hardware. Outside the house, Benny turns the wrong men into one theory. He barely has time to breathe before the night gets worse. A flash pops outside. The paparazzo neighbor is there with his camera up, already shooting. A second later, the stunt double neighbor appears too, close enough to make Benny's chest tighten. Benny keeps misreading these two men for a reason. The surface evidence around them is real. The paparazzo neighbor really does profit from chaos. The stunt double neighbor really is tied to the MG and the side deal mess Benny has been circling. So when both of them show up at once, Benny feels all his suspicions snap into place. He points at the camera and tells the paparazzo neighbor to stop. The man keeps shooting. Benny lunges. The camera jerks sideways, slips, and smashes against the ground. Plastic breaks. The paparazzo neighbor shouts. The stunt double neighbor grabs Benny from the side, trying to drag him back or stop the fight before it gets bigger. Benny takes that as proof he is involved and fights harder. By the time they break apart, the scene is a gift to police. There is a broken camera, a witness who can say Benny lost control, and another ugly public mess attached to his name. The arrest makes sense from the outside. When police catch up with him, Benny already knows what they see. They have the confession on tape. They have the threat against Joy's late husband on tape. They have the money transfer under Benny's login. They have Joy's hidden laptop in his house. Now they also have the broken camera and the fight. And underneath all of it sits his old record, waiting to make every fresh mistake look familiar. Footnote. The holding cell is humiliating, but it does one useful thing. It forces him to sit still inside the version of the story other people have been reading. From outside, the case against him looks brutal. Love, jealousy, money, anger, concealed evidence, violence. He knows he did not go back to that house after Joy sent him away. He knows he did not kill anybody. None of that changes what the pile looks like from across a desk. A damaged clip pushes Benny straight to Luna. Once he is out, Benny goes back to the card with Benny's sister beside him. He keeps skipping ahead through corrupted files. She stops his hand, drags the cursor back, and makes him watch one ruined clip again. "There," she says, when Joy shifts in frame. "Look at her eyes." Joy glances up. That is the first hit. She knew at least one camera was there. Then the audio clears for one surviving line. "Just in case, the file is in your cloud." That is enough. The clip is damaged. The sentence survives. Benny feels the room narrow around it. Joy was still building a backup path. Joy expected something to go wrong. And the file went to Luna. After the footage points toward her, Luna stops reading as background legal support and becomes the gatekeeper to Joy's location. The line is too exact to bluff. Benny could never have guessed it. The second he repeats those words to Luna, she knows he has seen something real. Denial has nowhere left to stand. Inside the shelter, help starts blurring into sleep. While Benny is finally getting proof, Joy is getting harder and harder to trust inside her own body. Her first computer lab meeting with Mitali is real. A shelter resident helps her at the keyboard. Joy gets that tiny AI signal out into the world and clings to the hope that Benny will hear it. After that, The help in her room belongs to a much shakier place. Joy believes the shelter resident keeps coming back. She believes the woman from the computer lab checks on her, carries news, promises to help again. The visits feel solid because they land at the edge where Joy has always been most vulnerable, the line between waking and sleep. By then, everything is piling on top of everything else. She is pregnant. Her meds are off rhythm. She is exhausted. She is carrying fresh trauma from the assault. She is bleeding. Her sleep state keeps swallowing time. She wakes with cramps, with damp sheets, with heat in her face and cold in her hands. She tries to count hours and loses them. She tries to decide whether she needs help right now or whether help is already moving toward her from outside the room. That false confidence costs her. She has no phone. Shelter rules cut her off from easy outside contact. Passwords and accounts are out of reach. And because she believes the line out is still working, she does not force the full alarm soon enough. Luna opens the way too late. Benny goes at Luna hard the second he has the clip. He says Joy's words exactly. Luna goes still. Benny can read the delay all over her face. She believed Joy was safe once she made it to the shelter. She was also tangled up in things after the assault that she could not explain cleanly. Then Joy's late husband turned up dead, and every extra day made the silence harder to unwind. So she kept choosing later. Now later is gone. Luna takes him to the shelter. The drive feels endless. Benny keeps looking at her, waiting for more, and getting almost nothing back. When they arrive, the gate holds. From the shelter side, Benny looks like the kind of man the rules are built to block. A hidden address, a woman in crisis, no visitors, no exceptions because somebody is desperate outside the fence. So he stands there with Joy only yards away and still cannot reach her. Luna goes in first and tries to make the case. Benny waits at the gate, helpless and furious, listening for any sound that might tell him Joy is close. Then the whole place snaps into motion. A staffer yells from inside, "There is blood, too much blood." Procedure disappears under urgency. Doors open, people run. Somebody calls for the ambulance. Benny does not get a reunion. He gets a stretcher. The ambulance carries Joy out alive. Everything narrows in the next few minutes. Joy is pale on the stretcher, barely present. The shelter has kept her hidden, though her body has run out of room to wait. Benny follows as far as they let him, then rides with the ambulance because there is nowhere else for his panic to go. At the hospital, the language turns blunt. Incomplete miscarriage. Hemorrhaging. Too much blood loss. Emergency surgery now. Then comes the line that lands hardest. To save her life, they may have to remove her uterus. Benny has spent days trying to understand where Joy went and who lied to him. Under the hospital lights, all of that drops behind the simpler truth. Joy was never only hiding. She was injured, pregnant, off her medical routine, losing blood, and slipping through a hallucinatory sleep state while he kept chasing the next clue. Luna is there too, and her silence has a shape now that Benny can feel. She did help Joy get out. She also delayed his access to her. Both truths stay in the room together. Then the doctor comes back. Joy survived the surgery. The bleeding is under control. The hysterectomy was necessary. She is alive. That is enough to end on. Joy is alive. Episode 6. What They Tell the World, What Joy Keeps. With Joy found, the question shifts. It is no longer where she is. It is what she can safely say and what she decides to keep. Benny gets the first part of that answer outside the hospital before anyone lets him back into her room. He looks wrecked. He has had no real sleep. The coffee in his hand has gone cold. He is still in the clothes from the shelter run, and now they smell like hospital air and old ambulance diesel. He has spent days chasing one bad lead after another. Then the detective comes into the courtyard and gives him one clear correction. The geotag work is done. Most of the so-called stalker posts do not lead out into the city. They lead back to the house, back to the network around Joy's address, back to phone and browser history tied to Joy's late husband. A few of the remaining shots came from paid paparazzi. Those were real enough. Money changed hands. Photos got taken. Still, the main line Benny had been chasing is wrong. There was no single stranger out there building this whole thing around Joy. The fear was being built from inside her own life. Benny just stands there and listens. He thinks about every bad guess he made. The fan theory, the street theory, the idea of some faceless outsider hovering over the case. He had been looking over fences and at strangers, while the real pressure was coming from the man inside the house, the one controlling the schedule, the business, the money, and the tone of the room. That lands harder than any mystery answer could. Chaos would have been easier to understand. This took planning, and once that piece turns, the rest of the case starts turning with it. Joy tells the police only what she can bear to tell. Inside, Joy is awake, though barely. Every movement costs her. Her body has been through surgery, blood loss, and the long collapse that brought her here. When the detective sits down beside her bed, she knows she cannot give away every piece of that night. So she gives the version she can live with. She says she was planning to leave. She says she asked Benny to help record a break announcement before her husband got home. She says the marriage was abusive. She says he came home, saw enough to know something was wrong, and turned violent. She says he assaulted her. She says she grabbed the closest heavy thing she could reach, the Fonzie statue, and hit him. Then she ran. That much is true. It explains the broken house. It explains why she vanished. It explains why she went into shelter protection and stayed hidden. It explains why she could not simply call Benny and make everything neat. Then Joy stops. She does not go into the full aftermath. She does not name who came after her. She does not walk the police back through every choice made in that room once she was gone. She makes that choice on purpose. She wants to protect the lawyer. She wants to protect the neighbor judge. She wants to protect the stunt double neighbor, and she does not want the rest of her survival turned into a public legal war that drags on for years. She has already lost too much to that house. The detective can hear the limit in her voice. He can also hear that this account changes the shape of the case. Joy has confirmed abuse. She has confirmed flight. She has put the violence back inside the marriage. That alone makes the story around Benny much harder to hold together. In Joy's room, the wail comes back first. When Benny is finally allowed in alone, the whole room feels quieter. The case is still hanging over them. The loss is still in the room, too. The monitors keep time. The sheets barely move when Joy shifts. Even turning her head looks careful. Still, this is the first moment since day zero when they are together and nobody is pulling them in different directions. And Joy starts with the wail. She asks if he ever found out whether a humpback could really swallow a person. For a second, Benny almost laughs. The sound gets caught halfway out of him. Then he answers the way he would have answered on the show, because that is the language they still know best. No, a humpback cannot actually swallow a human. The throat is too small. It can drag you under. It can hurt you without meaning to. It can make you feel tiny. It just cannot take you all the way in. Joy closes her eyes for a beat. When she opens them, she looks straight at him. I should have said me too. Benny goes still. That is the answer he was never going to get on the right night, in the right room, with the right amount of time. He told her he loved her in the middle of a crisis he did not understand. The feeling was true. The timing was terrible. Now Joy gives him the answer anyway. No speech. No big performance. Just the truth, said quietly from a hospital bed. Benny moves closer. Carefully, he takes her hand. He does not try to flood the moment with apologies or explanations. He just stays there and lets the silence settle around what she said. After that, they talk plainly. About 7 o'clock. About how badly he misread what she was trying to do. About the fact that she loved him then too, and could not say it while her whole life was starting to split open. About the fact that he is here now. Nothing in that room turns easy. Joy has survived, and the cost is still visible everywhere. She has lost the pregnancy. She has lost her uterus. She is alive, and that is the victory. The rest of it still hurts. Benny hears me too, and he hears it in a room that makes clear what it took for her to get there. The pressure on Benny eases and the public story settles. From Benny's side, the next stretch is slow. It is not one clean reversal. It is the pressure easing off one hard fact at a time. Joy is alive. Joy says she was running from abuse. Joy says she made the money transfer herself under Benny's login. The stalker trail bends back towards Joy's late husband. Once those pieces are in place, the death stops looking like a clean planned murder by Benny. It stays messy. It stops pointing neatly at him. That gives his lawyer room to push, and the case against him starts to loosen. The police do not suddenly become warm. They just lose the simple story they were building. From the outside, the case finally reads in a straight line. Joy survived a violent marriage. She disappeared into shelter protection after a brutal night at home. Her late husband was later found dead. The fake stalker line mostly traces back to him, with a few paid paparazzi shots mixed in. Benny was suspected for a while, then the case shifted and the pressure backed off. That is the version the public can follow. There is fallout all around it. The assistant producer gets her payout and leaves the team. The lawyer steps back once Joy is stable. Joy's neighbor stays in their lives quietly. The stunt double neighbor fades out of the public picture almost completely. The work still goes on, though it does not look the same. A new producer takes over the practical side. The doors around Joy's life stop closing the way they used to. A year later, Benny stands beside Joy at the memoir launch. People line up with books in their hands. Cameras flash. Readers hear the survival story, the disappearance story, the rebuilding story. Joy and Benny are together now, openly and steadily, and nobody in that room has to guess anymore. All of that is real. Joy still knows there is more. The SD cards take Joy back into the room. Later, when the case has cooled and the public version has settled into place, Joy finally sits down alone with the SD cards. This time, there is no detective in front of her. No one else is asking for a statement. She is asking her own question now. She wants to know what happened after she got out. The first shock is simple. There were 5 cameras. She knew about some of the surveillance. She never knew the full spread. Now the house opens around her from angles she never had. Her office, the hallway, the main room, the entry. Corners she thought belonged to her. They never did. She watches herself at the desk. She watches herself turn toward the hidden lens above it and say that the file is in Luna's cloud, just in case. At the time, it was a line thrown into the room for anyone who might need to hear it later. Now Joy sees exactly how deliberate it was. Then the footage brings Xander back. He comes into the house alive, furious, and already pushing the air out of the room. Joy watches the distance close faster than she remembered. She sees him corner her. She sees the argument turn. She sees the violence arrive. Then she sees herself fight. The knee, the scramble, her hand closing around the Fonzie statue, the swing, and her going down. She already knew she hit him. The footage gives her the shape of it. It shows how little time she had, how tight the room was, how fast the whole thing broke loose. Luna reaches the door while the room is still in motion. She sees enough and forces her way in. Joy watches herself stumbling toward escape. A moment later, the neighbor judge and the stunt double neighbor enter too. This is the part Joy never had. Xander is still moving after she gets clear. He tries to rise. He is still dangerous. The stunt double neighbor goes to him on instinct and training, trying to pin him down before he can come after anyone else. It is fast, ugly, bodies hitting the floor, hands trying to control what is already out of control. Then Xander stops moving. Eek. The footage gives Joy sequence. It does not give her a neat answer. She can see the blow, she can see the fall, she can see the restraint. She cannot point to one clean second and name it with certainty. Nobody in that room could have done that either. After that, the panic changes shape. The neighbor judge is the first one looking ahead, already seeing what the law will do with a room like this. Luna is shaken, though she is trying to think through the damage. The stunt double neighbor is the one who says he knows how to make a crash look real. Joy watches the decision form right there, in real time. No one treats it lightly. No one looks proud of it. They move because they think any other path will drag Joy back into the same machine she has just escaped. Joy sees Luna strip out the cards and trace as she notices. She sees how one backup camera above the desk gets missed. She sees the practical work that turns the room into one story and the forest into another. By the time the footage ends, the hidden line is no longer a guess. She has watched it happen. Joy destroys the cards and keeps moving. Once Joy has seen the footage, she has the fullest version of the truth she is ever going to get. She also has the evidence that could rip everything back open. If she keeps those cards, she keeps a door open to a new investigation, new exposure, new questions, new damage. The lawyer would go back under scrutiny. So would the neighbor judge. So would the stunt double neighbor. Benny could get pulled back into the orbit of the case again, and Joy herself would be pushed right back toward the room she has spent all this time trying to leave behind. She decides she will not do that. So Joy destroys the cards. She breaks them down and makes sure they are gone. The public story stays where it is. It is incomplete. It is also the version she can survive. That is the choice she makes at the end. She keeps the knowledge, she gets rid of the proof, she chooses the life in front of her, with Benny beside her, and leaves the rest buried with the dead. The case ends in two layers. One of them can be told out loud. The other stays with Joy. And Joy's final choice to watch the footage, then destroy it, is also the key to how this novel wants to be understood. After the hospital room, after the search has turned into survival, and after the public version has settled enough to keep her alive, Joy goes back to the one piece of evidence that could still blow everything open. She watches the SD cards alone. She reaches the fullest private version of that night she is ever going to have. Then she destroys the cards. That ending leaves the novel split in two. One version of events can survive in daylight. The fuller version remains private because Joichu says to keep it there. By the end, the factual mystery is mostly solved. What the SD cards change is not the police case. They show why Joy chooses a survivable public story over a complete public truth. That is why I would place this book in contemporary domestic suspense, shaped by coercive control and delayed testimony. The novel uses mystery tools all the way through. It runs on clues, locked files, damaged footage, wrong suspicion, and staggered revelation. Still, its deepest pressure comes from control of access. Who sees the messages? Who runs the money? Who sets the schedule? Who controls the house? Who gets watched? Who can speak plainly without paying for it later? Those are the engines that matter most. That placement also explains the SD cards. In a more classical puzzle plot, recovered footage would finish the public case. It would settle the sequence and hand the last answer to police. Here, the footage serves a different job. It gives Joy private certainty. Public repair never follows automatically. Full exposure does not arrive as relief. The novel keeps those things separate, and that is the whole force of the ending. It also explains why the delayed testimony works. Joy does not leave pieces behind for the sake of a twist. She leaves pieces because direct speech has already been made dangerous. A note, a file, a half recording, a tiny signal online. Those fragments belong to the same world as the hidden cameras and the managed schedule. The broken record is part of the abuse pattern. 4. So when the full record finally exists, the book never pretends that putting it into daylight would undo the damage. That is where the moral residue stays alive. Luna, Carlotta, and Emil do help protect Joy. They also help shape a false public story. The novel does not wash that clean. It leaves the compromise in place. That matters. A weaker ending would sort them too neatly. This one does not. They act under pressure. They make choices with consequences. Joy survives inside those choices, and she still has to live with what they did for her and around her. So the last private act carries more weight than the romance payoff and more weight than the case cleanup. The final authority sits with Joy alone. She is the one who sees the last evidence. She is the one who decides what joins the shared record. That is the strongest move the novel makes. It gives the survivor authorship, even when that authorship is messy, costly, and morally incomplete. That is also what makes the ending linger after the plot is over. The book solves enough. It tells us what kind of danger Joy was living in. It tells us why the truth had to come in pieces. It tells us why survival and full disclosure do not line up neatly here. Then it stops at the hardest point possible, the point where knowledge exists and the person who holds it chooses silence for a reason. So, if I had to place the novel with one external judgment, I would keep it there. This is a suspense novel where the final revelation does not reopen the world. It shows why the world does not get everything. Joy keeps the knowledge, she destroys the proof, and the book leaves us with a very sharp idea of survival. Sometimes the final power is deciding what the world will never get to know.